ASEAN Breakfast Call Dialogue, widening your horizons.
Hey, this is Arlene.
Hi, this is Gowri.
This is Grace. And you are listening to Durian ASEAN. We are at our third segment for our ABC Dialogue. Apologies that we have to start late a bit due to some technical difficulties. But with me right now is Cynthia Gabriel. So she is with C4, not the bomb, but Center for Corruption and Cronyism, am I right?
Yes,
combating
right.
Corruption and cronyism. That's where the C4 comes from, right?
That's right.
So, first of all, just tell us more about yourself and C4.
Okay. Hello, Arlene. Thank you for having us on the show. I represent the Center to Combat Corruption and Cronyism. It stands for four principles of good governance, which is competency, consciousness, credibility, and clean, which means we want the government to embody all of these principles when they administer the government on behalf of the people. So with the 4 C's, we call ourselves C4 in short. Of course, we know that it takes after a bomb. But in reality, the issue is to actually wage a war against corruption, and that we want to combat corruption at every level of government.
So the reason why we're having this interview is we want to discuss in-depthly about the AG report, especially focusing on government's wastage and corruption. Every year, whenever the Parliament tables the AG report, is always full of something interesting in terms of the spending of the government. What is your particular view on our AG report this year?
Well, the Auditor General's report has been presented to Parliament for the last couple of years, but we take a special interest in the findings of the report, mainly because of the focus of public spending and government spending has reached new levels of concern, has reached new levels of notoriety, and new levels of public outrage that actually goes to show incompetence, negligence, and fraud being the center of how our public sector has actually irresponsibly managed taxpayers' money. And it's very serious given this time that we are faced with a rising cost of living. We are faced with rising harsh realities of subsidy cuts, of everything being more expensive than it was 2 or 3 years ago. It was only yesterday that I bought a bowl of noodles that cost 8 ringgit now as compared to 5 ringgit 50 cents.
Oh, wow. Inflation.
6 months ago. And I was so shocked that he charged me 8 ringgit. But this is the harsh reality that's being slapped onto people. And we tend to wonder, why is it that we are being burdened with a higher cost of living, with subsidy cuts, and with so much more difficulty in trying to make ends meet?
And the GST coming along the way soon, next
exactly.
year.
And the GST has not even been implemented yet. That's supposed to come in April next year. And on the other hand, we find that through the Auditor General's report, and this is the formal appraisal of the public sector, the Auditor General's report presents itself a horrendous story of how our government is wasting taxpayers' money when that money can be used to subsidize and make the cost of living in Malaysia much more bearable for Malaysians. But instead, more and more money is being lost to wastage and leakage. So we are organizing this forum with a very high-level panel of speakers.
Oh, let's talk about the forum. I haven't introduced the forum yet. It is this Saturday. Maybe you can share with us the line of speakers that will be present.
Okay. First of all, why we're doing this forum. We're doing this forum within the context that I just described just now. And we're also doing the forum because we want now very much for the public to take center stage in shaping public policy and how our monies can be actually better managed at the government level. So we have actually managed to secure the participation and speakers list, which is quite impressive. The first is the Auditor General himself.
Oh,
now, he
the current one.
Yes, the current one. He rarely makes a public appearance, but in this case he has obliged us with the request because he himself has always been concerned about the lack of action on the report, the lack of follow-ups that need to be taken on the findings of the report. And so he has obliged to actually come meet the public face-to-face on very rare occasions. And so we are extremely appreciative of his time given to us on Saturday. So we urge the public to come forward and listen for the first time the Auditor General himself talk about the findings of the report.
This is the first time in Malaysian history, I suppose.
Well, I wouldn't say the first time in Malaysian history, but on very rare occasions that he actually meets the public face-to-face. And he's been very obliging about doing that this time. So we urge everyone to take an opportunity to come and listen and to ask questions and to get a better picture of the whole thing. So we also have the Public Accounts Committee in Parliament. The Public Accounts Committee is the highest body in Parliament that actually scrutinizes the findings of the Auditor General's report and decides if there is any action that should be taken, say, on an errant civil servant or a staff member that might be involved in a corruption
That's Tony Pua.
crime and so on. So yes, Tony Pua, he's one of the most vocal members of the Public Accounts Committee. He will be with us on Saturday morning. And that will be followed by the Malaysian Anti-Corruption Chief Commissioner. He will actually talk to us about the role of MECC in fighting corruption in the public sector. And that is one of the biggest challenges that we face in Malaysia today. How to weed out corruption and combat that whole negative culture in the public sector. And what is the role of MECC? What has MECC done so far? Because I think part of the problem here is MECC does not enjoy public confidence at very high levels. And so this is an opportunity for questions to be asked as well. And then we have a representative from the University of Nottingham. He is an academic economist, and he will actually put the picture of the money trail, how public money is being spent, where it goes, whether into someone's pocket, or actually it goes to safeguard the interest of the public. For example, the subsidy cuts on petrol, whether it would actually go into serving public goods in terms of the savings that have been received, or it actually gets wasted again. So he will give us a bigger macro picture. And finally, there's me from the center, because one of the reasons why we wanted to speak to the public here is because we have launched a crowdsourcing website called www.combatcorruption.my. And this crowdsourcing website is actually a way for the public to break down the Auditor General's report. It's a very technical, complicated report, but we have helped to break it down in terms of information, in terms of ease of comprehending the findings, and we urge people to actually place their comments. And the best comments will actually be compiled into a citizens audit report and sent to the Public Accounts Committee when it meets in Parliament next year again. So it's the first time that this initiative of getting citizens to play a bigger role in responding to the findings of the Auditor General's report gets
And the moderator, we forgot to introduce the moderator for the event this Saturday, 29 November, in the morning, 9:30 at KL Teaching Center in Chulan Tower. The moderator will be Professor Zaharom Nain, which will be discussing the same issue regarding on the AG's report later on after the break. It's interesting to see like academicians, public servants, and yourself an advocate for anti-corruption and cronyism to sit down together and talk. This is a very rare occasion, it seems like.
Well, yes, very much. And we've got one of the best moderators in town. He's really sharp, savvy, funny, and on the ball. So we again extend our appreciation to the University of Nottingham, Malaysia campus for cooperating with us on this event, and for, of course, allowing us a space to hold this forum. And part of the reason why we joint venture and decided to request cooperation from an academic institution is because we know that at the end of the day, we need to talk to the younger generation. We need to get them interested on public interest issues. And the Nottingham University has stepped forward to be an example for the other universities to follow suit and to actually take an interest in public spending, in government accountability, and in the way our taxpayers' money are being managed.
Yeah. Unfortunately, we have to take a break now, but when we return, we will speak with Professor Zaharom Nain. And his point of view on this particular issue of government wastage and corruption. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Cynthia.
Bye.
ASEAN Breakfast Call Dialogue, widening your horizons.
Hey, this is Arlene.
Hi, this is Gowri.
This is Grace. And of course, with us is another speaker, Professor Zaharom Nain. He's the Vice Dean of Research from the Faculty of Arts and Social Science, University of Nottingham, Malaysia. How are you? You sound very enthusiastic.
Fine, thanks.
Hi. So, continuing our discussion from Cynthia, Gabriel, we spoke more about the forum and the kind of speakers that will be speaking on this Saturday morning, 29th of November at KL Teaching Center at Chulan Tower. But with you, we will be asking the harder question, which is about the AG report. This is my personal curiosity because it seems like the only accountable, agency or personnel is the Auditors General. They seem to be, digging out a lot of skeletons from the closet. And why it seems like it's the more independent agency compared to the rest of the government's department or government's ministries?
Yeah, which is a good thing. I think there's been a tradition of independence with the AG's officers since Tan Sri Ahmad Nordin. If you remember Tan Sri Ahmad Nordin, I think it was before you guys were born.
Yeah, we are very young, I think.
It was the BMF scandal many years ago, and there was the Royal Commission of Inquiry led by the Auditor General, then the late Tan Sri Ahmad Nordin, and I think that was the first time in a long time, I think, that the AG came out in public and was very vocal about what was happening and what had happened with the BMF scandal, the Bumiputera finance scandal at that point in time. And I think since then they've cultivated this tradition of being independent, of auditing the accounts of various government institutions without fear or favor, and I think that's a good thing. It's quite a sad thing every year to hear the same old, abuse of funds, abuse of public funds at that, and some really the accounts of so many stupid or silly sort of purchases, and but what's sad, I guess, is that while these accounts are there and while they're widely reported, not many of them are looked into, I feel, in any real sense. And people now keep saying, stuff like, that's normal now, that's biasa. Every year it's going to be the same old story. Yeah, but I think as the rakyat, we should not take that kind of attitude. We should take the attitude that these things need to be questioned, need to be investigated, and need to be resolved. And those who abuse that power, those who abuse the funds, ought to be dealt with in the proper legal manner.
But like you said, it's a recurring thing that's happening year in and year out, and people are even getting used to it. But what can they do actually? Because maybe they're like, I'm just a rakyat, I don't have the power. So how can they play their part in
Well, I think that to assume that we are just the rakyat, I think you should turn that on its head and say we are the rakyat rather than we are just the rakyat. They're there primarily because of us. The people in power who abuse that power are there primarily because we let them abuse that power. So I think
like we let Jalan Duta to change to some royal names, isn't it?
Yes. So it's time for us to take our country back, I feel, as it were.
And take our road back.
to speak out, and at the very least to speak out. How many of us really write to the press? How many of us go onto radio stations that allow this kind of space and say something? Many of us don't, you see. And I think because we feel we are powerless, but I think it's time for people to say we are not powerless, and it's a re-education of what we feel are our rights, essentially, and an awareness that we can and we must be the agents for change.
Well, it is true that every time the issues are released via media, especially, people tend to think that it's going to be the same issue the following year and the same issues coming up in this Malaysia. But how do we avoid this kind of mindset among people towards the government?
Well, I think the first thing is to say that the people up there, the government, the civil servants who are in power, they're there because we let them get away with those kind of things. And we have to tell ourselves that they're human beings as well. And subsequently, they're no stronger than we are. And many, many years ago, people were so fearful of, for example, the ISA, a few of those things have gone already. It's time to stand up to those, to the bully tactics. It's time for us to also not be so feudal and think that, the people up there are too powerful for us to, and we have to be loyal. This whole nonsense about saya menurut perintah, we have to get through the kind of propaganda that they put across that they are always right and we are somehow we owe something. We owe them a favor rather than them.
Yeah, I'm really curious here, Professor, because after this forum on Saturday, there are certain areas that this forum is looking into, like 3 or 4 aims. But after the how is it gonna be after this forum, regarding the reaction or feedback?
I don't think you can expect much from one single Saturday morning forum. I'm not even sure many people will attend. The whole idea was when Cynthia discussed this with me, the whole idea that they had was to essentially inform more people, especially the young. But it's only the beginning. The fact that the forum is being held and the fact that the Auditor General himself has said that he will come over, I think that's a good sign. I think the next stage is for other universities, other institutions to also embark on this kind of venture. And, our universities are not just there to churn out people with degrees. Universities are there to conscientize people, I feel, to make people aware of the wider social circumstances. And I think if if universities, especially public universities, do not take this kind of role, then I think we're really doing the right giving them a bad deal, and the future generations.
I want to raise one thing about the issue regarding on corruption and leakages, because it seems to be more of a opposition thing to raise the issue. Do you think with this forum you are having public servants, and hopefully there will be pro-government politician coming in to actually raise it as a Malaysian issue rather than a partisan one?
It would be good to think that way. I think many of us would like it to be that way, that it's not it shouldn't be a partisan issue. But you see, I mean, we go back through history. I think there's been a whole history of this kind of behavior, this kind of abuse of power, unfortunately perhaps associated with the government of the day, because they've been there all this time. So because of that, often when you talk about corruption, you talk about people in power. And even within, let's say, UMNO, the whole notion of money politics, that's a term that's constantly thrown about, that's constantly raised, and there is an acceptance that happens. And money politics effectively is corruption. So they might use a different term, but that's what it is all about, and they acknowledge that. And because there is this acknowledgement, and because often it's so blatant, they don't seem to really care. I mean, the latest AG report about this about the civil servant, this officer who amassed a fortune of almost 1 million ringgit, right? And nothing was done. When those things happen, people with impunity just decide, they do it, everybody does it, and so we will do it. So it's a culture that's already there, that unfortunately perhaps for the Barisan National Government is linked to them, right? Because they have to take responsibility.
When you say it's a culture, when did this culture really started?
Well,
is it since the Merdeka, or is it since Tun Mahathir's time, or is it just recently since 2009 in Najib's period?
No, certainly not 2009.
Or the dynamic of the corruption and leakages has changed.
The dynamic of the corruption has changed since when?
Would there be? Do you think the government has more accountability since Najib's time, or less, or has maintained the same, and the kind of corruption has changed? Probably in the past it will be more towards cronyism, and now it's more about leakages.
No, I think it's still there. Cronyism is still there. And if you were to ask me when did it start, it'd be a biased sort of opinion on my part, but I would say it started in the 1980s. Certainly during Dr. Mahathir's time, I feel, it came about, I guess, perhaps because of the rise of capitalism in many ways, a rise of a capitalist state in the context of Malaysia, policies in many ways that effectively allowed the state to interfere much more in the economy, and subsequently there was a lot of personal gains that could be got. So, I would say certainly in the 1980s, but like I said, this is not based on any sort of empirical study. And I think nonetheless, it has still expanded, it has grown, it has become very firmly entrenched in the culture, in the way things are conducted in Malaysia. So subsequently, I wouldn't say Najib has improved anything. When a prime minister goes up and says that, you help me, I help you, that famous quote of his, remember in East Malaysia, I think it was Sabah Sarawak. When even the leader of the country says something like that, then it's kind of sad now.
Mm-hmm. What's the I guess if you are talking about the way forward, what is the more doable way forward if you're talking in the next 5 years before the general election? Do you think I know, but do you think the best way forward, instead of just having the AG report to report about the government spending, the government should set up like a commission or a body or something else to complement the AG report?
I think the institutions are already there, as you will see on Saturday. I mean, the AG report comes out. There is the MACC. Now, what is the job of the MACC? I think the job of the MACC is to go after those people who the AG report outlines have been abusing power. Now, whether the MACC does it, of course, is another thing altogether. Yeah?
But a lot of the corruption cases that has been raised has always been coming from politicians of the opposition side. It's like out of a sudden, like they release this particular document about some corruption cases happening in somewhere in Malaysia. But if you have to do it the right way, would it be good to have the government body to actually uncover this instead of having, outside?
Yeah, well, there are the two government bodies there, effectively the Auditor General's offices and also the MACC. Now, if they're not going to do it, then, if the opposition, it doesn't really matter to me whether it's the opposition, whether it's civil society, whether it's academics who do it. But once those things are revealed, irrespective of who they come from, I think the onus would be on these institutions, especially the MACC, to investigate in an independent manner. Unfortunately, in the context of Malaysia, many things are not so independent. Yeah, so you can't, for me, to expect government leaders or the Barisan national leaders to reveal would be it'll be stretching the imagination somewhat lah. Yeah, it's like I won't put any analogies there, but I think you can see what I mean. So subsequently, it's left to opposition members, it's left to the civil society groups to unveil this kind of abuse of power, and it needs to be revealed. It needs to be unveiled primarily because it affects our economy. Yeah, and it's our money. It's not. It's money that's wrongly spent.
Okay, so
Right.
Unfortunately, we are at the end of our show now.
Yeah, I can hear that.
Yeah, you can hear that. We will continue the discussion actually on Saturday. Not we, but you, and the
okay.
panel of speakers.
Right.
All the best, and hopefully this will be a process. The beginning of a process that will lead to somewhere where there will be greater accountability by the government.
We all live in hope.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.